Welcome to the Coaching Summit 2025, this year with a theme of diversity, equity, inclusion and belonging, and brought to you by In Good Company, a global coaching training organisation bringing you coaching qualifications and ongoing CPD for coaches. If you're inspired to continue your learning, then be sure to check out our website at igcompany.co.uk. But for now, we invite you to sit back and enjoy the amazing lineup that we have for you today from our expert speakers who all share a passion for our theme of diversity, equity, inclusion and belonging. Enjoy!
All right, welcome everyone. It's lovely to see you back as I'm admitting people into the room. To the Coaching Summit 2025. This year we're focusing on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. It is such a privilege to be able to introduce you to Kofi Kyei. He is a creative solutions-focused coach. He takes a holistic approach when coaching, understanding that imbalances in one area of our lives can lead to difficulty accessing our fullest potential in other areas of our lives. In supporting his clients, he draws upon the diverse experiences and various coaching models to bring empathy and love to the journey they embark upon. Kofi is known to be a highly empathetic and optimistic coach who has a firm belief in our ability to grow through adversity to reach our potential. And he builds trust and rapport rapidly, providing a safe space for the exploration of barriers to desired levels of performance, whilst raising awareness and personal responsibility for required change. And he is slowly becoming my new business bestie because, man, he's got some amazing stuff to share with us today. It is truly a privilege to be able to share this. Just to let you know, before Kofi gets started, we're going to have a bit of music, a bit of auditory exploration to kind of get us in the zone and get us in the mood. But for now, I'm handing it over to you, Kofi. Thanks so much.
Present, future, senior, baby, junior. You take the fire of the young, the power of now, the wisdom of old. Combine all three and that's a recipe for winning. No point looking back, saying I could have done this, should have done that. That's valuable time being wasted in the present, and it's only in the present where the future can be molded. The reoccurring question is, what would I have told myself 10 years ago? Focus. Although the O was replaced by an S, there ain't a broken home I don't represent. Still misunderstood, still conflicted. How many times have I looked at the man in the mirror and had to convince him, be brave, be different, just be you, and be consistent?
Thank you all. Now I'm going to do the magic and switch my audio. Done it. Thank you all for welcoming me and for your participation in today's session. What an incredible few sessions that we've had. I've tuned in from the very first with Gwen to Amanda and Claire just now, and have taken away so much that I think that, like a good barbecue, I need some time for it all to marinate, really, because it's been really impactful. So as Gwen has already shared, my name's Kofi Kyei, and over the next 30 minutes or so, I'll be sharing my thoughts on authenticity in leadership and the intersectionality of those we lead. I've already thanked you in advance for your participation, so I'm really hoping that you're not going to make me regret that later on. And my first question for you is, when you see me through the screen and not in real life, who do you see? And perhaps you might pop some of that in the chat.
That's a tough question sometimes for people to be willing to be brave, to kind of say, who do you see? Because I would be remiss if I didn't say I see a Black man in front of me, right? We have other people saying they see a professional Black male, a finance guy, a calm authority, a smartly dressed man, someone who is humble. I see a warm, welcoming human, professional city man, lots of different things that are being seen. A bald expert.
I think I need to save the chat. I remember who that is, because that is probably one of my favorite people, and a warm person. But thank you so much for jumping in and saving me, because I thought it would only be a future husband Okay, I thought it'd
Oh.
only be my mum that would be on here, but the fact that you're here makes me feel warm and definitely welcome to share, my insights. So you are right in a number of ways. I am a bored person. I am a warm person, but I'm also an executive coach, as you've heard, and a father to five. So that's three actual humans and two fur babies. I'm a trustee, a volunteer, a community champion, an entrepreneur, chief vibes officer, self-appointed, bicycle racer, rollerblader, motorcyclist, part-time model, an ambassador for a number of global cycling brands, and last but not least, a man of faith. So, with those things shared, I wonder what does that highlight to you?
I'll tell for me, anyone who calls himself a chief vibes officer, self-appointed, that gives me a certain energy. That gives me a certain understanding of you more than that one, and the fact that you have fur babies that you included in your father of fiveness. That says more about you than anything else that I've seen.
Brilliant, brilliant.
But here we have people saying, it's the things that we can't see that define us. The special about what we didn't see. I honestly feel love, multifaceted, well-rounded. Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you all. Thank you all. And the calmness about me. My legs may be shaking right now, John, but thank you for that. And I think there's so many truths in what's been shared, but one of the things that really comes to my mind is the power of being in the right environment to be your full and authentic self. And yes, to Tracy, diverse as well. And as we go through the session, I just would like to invite you to keep in mind how much more powerful our workplaces, our partnerships would be if everyone was able to bring their full self to any seat that they occupy. So, in my work, I support current and future leaders to live full and happier lives through a closer connection to their authentic selves and purpose. Before we get into the topic, remember to press slides. Let me know if it's moving. Do we have movement?
I do not have movement.
Okay. Do we have movement?
There we go.
Okay. Before we get into topic, I'd like to share some of my journey to this point in my life as an invitation into that intersectionality. So we'll start with who I am and how I got here, and then we'll look at unlocking your authenticity, and then the third piece will be around going deeper. And I'm going to do my very best not to do 1.5 speed, so that we can capture the moments that I share, whichever resonate for you. So, who am I and how did I get here? If we start with some context, there'll be the Genesis, good old biblical reference, my career, life quakes, diploma in coaching, and then liftoff. So here you've got a timeline of some notable events. I've starred the first one because that is my birthday, and Jesus has forever been a bigger deal in my life. So I came after he was uh, alleged to arrive on the 25th of December, much to my mum's enjoyment. And I starred that so that you can all remember and think of me on the 26th of December. Um, then I had my experiences in education as I sort of grew. And at school, I was a middle of range student, but found myself in leadership roles from captaining the rugby team to president of Sixth Form Council and to being the deputy head boy, for which I was robbed. I should have been the head boy, but a dubious error of judgment on my side probably cost me that election. And then from 1997 onwards, I found my way through the world of work, not really knowing what it was that I wanted to do, but just sort of going with the flow. And then 2001 was probably life quake number one. If you negate the fact that my parents split up before I was two and I went to live with my dad and the learnings that came from that experience with a new family. So in 2001, I lost my sister suddenly, my older sister. She was the firecracker, the sort of lead rebel in the family. And it wasn't expected. Um, Moving past that, I then went through the rest of university. And then September 2022, another life quake hit, which was separation and a decision to leave the family home that I shared with the three of my five children. The two children came later on. And in July 2023, as I was going through this sort of identity reclassification, I decided to take on the coaching skills certificate. And then in May 2024, another life quake, change in leadership at work, and a decision not to be in any relationships any longer that where my value was not necessarily reciprocated or acknowledged led me to leave my job. And I thought, I can't keep being chief fires officer. I need to pay some bills. And so I commenced the executive diploma in coaching. And on that cohort was encouraged to start the journey that I'm now on and launched Che Executive Coaching in August last year. So along the way, there have been some influences for me. Reading has been a real passion. And some of these books, and not all of the books that I read, that really informed the sort of thoughts that I was later to have. The 5 a.m. Club for me was fantastic. If anyone's read it, shout out. In terms of giving me a framework, in terms of beginning to build or rebuild my life as I saw it. And then Invisible Power, in terms of understanding that much of what we feel comes from the inside out and not the outside in. And I see Claire loves Tuesdays with Maury, which for me, the one line where he says giving is living was like a Marvel comic flicking through. And I remembered all the times that I'd done some charitable work, helped someone out, and thought, oh, I wonder if I could have a life that was more like that. And here I am, sharing, as you all do, that sort of transformative power we have to co-create magic. Some other influences, the bike racing I talked to you about earlier, travel, a lot of travel, my faith, but also exploring other faiths to really understand, what they were all saying, why so many people were so convinced that theirs was the truth. Community Champion with Ride for Unity, which is a global cycling community now, celebrating all of us and our unity and diversity in cycling. So I take a pause because I realize I'm just going ad lib and I haven't read my notes. So I'm going to catch up with myself if you give me 2 seconds. But yeah, essentially what I wanted to pause and talk about was the fact that life will life us all, and the intersectionality of conditions that we face shape us as we move through the journey. And as leaders and coaches and just general fellow human beings, how we embrace this in our interactions can truly shape more favorable outcomes and indeed connections. So on reflection, as we love to do as coaches, I came up with a little framework. This is the elevation framework. And as you might be familiar, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and then what I've called the growth zone. And it started with sitting with myself. Now, after 20 years of being in a partnership and a relationship, it is quite hard to sit on your own because I don't know whether it's the pull of children or time never being your own. Just sitting still was really difficult for me at the beginning of the separation in my apartment overlooking South London as I was. But in those moments, I started to hear the quiet voice within me become louder. And in that, I explored my soul set, which is what is my purpose, my heart set, which is the letdowns and disappointments and heartbreaks that had followed me in my journey thus far. My mindset, which we talk about, in terms of growth mindset and health set. So this was where the physicality and the focus on exercise as a tool towards resilience came in, and then the bike racing as well. And then came the why, like, why do I want to be here? What do I want to do with my life? And so some goals came and some reflection. And in the middle, we've heard this a few times today, the continuous curiosity and seeing adversity as adventure. I'll leave it as that. And when the adversity hits, the creativity and character that we have is truly tested. And supportive challenge I put here as well. So my family will tell you, my mum might jump on here in a minute, that it is not unusual for me to send out a message every 3 to 4 months to say, hey, what 2 things do you think I'm doing well right now? And what one thing do you think I can improve upon? Because for me, the real power comes when we shine a light in those dark, shadowy places that we're unaware of. And so I do it brave at times because sometimes I get back things that I didn't necessarily think I wanted to know, but so be it. And that's what's happened. And then in the growth zone, it's more of the personal accountability, which we do all the time. And then the action and no action cycle, because these days there is this progression obsession I've discovered. And maybe some of you share that, where we must be endlessly completing to-do lists and posting and this and that. But I've realized that actually, much like nature, there are seasons of bloom and blossom, but also seasons where the land needs to remain fallow so that we can selectively choose what seeds we plant for our future journey. And I love this strategic yet fluid objectives in that it basically lets me do what I like. So I say that I need to be in flow, but at the same time, I have an ear open and I'm present in the now as to what may be strategically beneficial to me moving forward. Um, and difficult for me because it's not something that was in my childhood, but to celebrate wins. So small, big, whatever. The fact that I wake up and 150,000 people globally don't, that is my day starting right because I'm here and God has blessed me with another day for mischief and merriment. And you'll be damned if I'm not going to take that. So in the process of introspection, and I invite you and maybe to encourage your clients to do such, I did an audit of my authenticity now. And that led me to who am I? So I flick through, and here are a few of the things that came up for me. And maybe cheating and maybe not cheating, but with my background of 20 plus years in talent acquisition and executive search, what I've come to see is that we don't have to have a one size fits all. We don't need to fit in a box. And actually, I usually will ask people, same as in coaching practice, what is it that you enjoy and where are, maybe your strengths or the things that you enjoy spending time and where you're flowing. And these are the things that came up for me. And actually, if you overlay them with the role of a coach, but maybe many other things, you'll probably see that some of these things are relevant to that role as they may be for many others. So it's topic 2 and embracing your authenticity as a leader. Beyond slogans and strategy, and I've worked for a number of companies and partnered with a number of companies, culture and people are without a doubt the central pillars for any organization. And some of the things that I've heard people say, and you may have heard, will pop up now. And I wonder if of any of these, just to make it interactive and check you're still awake, any of these resonate or jump out to anyone that's tuned in, still awake.
I can I can tell you both myself and my husband have either thought, said, heard probably all of these, both the oh, my team doesn't get me to the oh, my team feels like a family, depending on where we are and how we fit and all of that. And 77 Tracy says 77% of leaders did not choose to lead. I like that. She's resonating with that one. Um, yeah, lots of people are kind of just quoting your little expressions here and there too. I feel like there's like a Kofi of the day calendar that should be coming out here. But accidental managers, they're the ones I want to coach. Are leaders born or made? Remember crying when my team was restructured in my first job. All of that. It sounds like it's one of those personal universal moments right there.
And the 77% of leaders actually floored me when I read that. And I think it was in Whitmore's book, Coaching for Performance. And over my career, maybe you can all resonate with this as well. So many leaders get to be leaders or managers. I know terms are interchangeable through tenure or technical expertise. They never got there because they're like, I want to empower and elevate the people that work for me. I want to make them better. No, it came with a paycheck. They'd been there long enough. And really, if they didn't take it, questions would be asked as to their ambition in the organization. The extension of family is a big one. And the crying when my manager resigned, I have to come clean. That was me. That was actually me. And it was a short segue going through the separation process. I was on the floor, lost my mojo, didn't believe I could do the work that I was doing. And I had the most empathetic, kindest soul of a manager. And one Monday we sat together for our regular Monday morning catch up to talk through the past week, what was going on the next week. And then she hit me with it that she'd resigned. And I couldn't stop myself. I've never, ever, ever cried at work. And I was reduced to tears as she tried to reassure me that it was all going to be okay. But it wasn't going to be okay because with her, there was the trust, there was a transparency, there was truth, but above all, there was real supportive love to getting me back to being my best. navigating life as I was at the time. So, as I've said, when culture and people are underpinned by the three T's, magical things really start to happen. Belonging increases alongside innovation and fulfillment. Innovation because you don't get anywhere by doing the same things that you've always done. We know that status quo, irrespective of experience, etc. But if your voice can be heard, and even the most quietest people are encouraged in team stand-ups or meetings to share their opinions, then really, really powerful things start to happen. And the fulfillment piece is probably one of the main things that I coach people on, where, like Roadrunner, if any of you know the cartoon, they've been running and running and running, and they've come off the edge of this cliff. And now they look down and there's nothing there, and they don't understand what life is supposed to be other than a plummet straight down. But with fulfillment, feeling that you belong, this magical, ethereal situation can happen. So I'll move on to my next slide. Hopefully, I don't mess it up. And I would like to say that I borrowed this from Amanda and Claire earlier on. But in the work that we do as coaches, supporting leaders, I think central to this is my universe or PowerPoints, as you now know, because Amanda and Claire used it. But central to the attribute universe is authenticity, in my view, in my humble opinion. I think it's a challenge for many I coach and something that I've personally wrestled with for much of my professional career, to be honest. Um, Being an outsider on the inside, masking, shrinking, all of these things really diverted delightful energy, and I call it delightful because I feel fizzy like pink prosecco these days, from the seats that I held. But the other things you probably have come across are communication, vision, adaptability, decisiveness, and of course empathy, which I spoke a little bit about earlier on. So how can we tap into our own authenticity? Sorry, Eva, that you've got to go. Hopefully you can catch a recording. So how can we tap into our own authenticity? And as coaches, we love a question. And I thought to just stimulate thinking and conversation, I'll divide it into two camps. We could ask ourselves, but also our coachees, who are you? And when I say that, I start with alignment. So inside and outside of work, are you the same person or are you using energy to be one thing more or less? Connection with your purpose, and that's yours, but also your organization's. What are your values? Your boundaries, super important. I heard something the other day when four people barely knew each other went on a conference and they started the trip with, these are my boundaries, these are the things I need. And by all accounts, they had the best holiday, working holiday, they've ever had because each of them knew but understood and respected what the others needed. At your best, that's to say, when you are at your best, who are you and how do you show up? Under pressure, again, they say pressure makes diamonds, but they also say pressure reveals true character, much like when you squeeze an orange and the juice comes out. You can't get anything other than orange juice when you squeeze a lemon. Orange. Sorry, someone at my door, Alexa's announced. We shall ignore. What's your preferred communication style? And then I love the phrase superpowers. I know that it could be a hot word for some, but what are those? Because when you focus on the things that you're good at, you're probably likely to enjoy them more. But then the flip side of the coin is really the growth areas. And this is where the feedback comes into it for me, because I can't see what I can't see. I see the world through my lens, absorbing inputs from as many people as I can. But when others point out things, it does take some comfort being uncomfortable to hear things that you might not identify with yourself or your behaviors. But I think there's some real power in that. And then the flip side is, how do you appear? Are we present? Are we directive? Are we consistent, open minded, inclusive, and adaptable? And I've skipped past that, but let me reverse the card just a little bit. With inclusive, I love this one for a number of reasons. I mean, part of why we're here, but when we say we're inclusive, how do we show up? And someone once said this really beautiful thing, which was, who do you have around your dinner table on the weekend? And it floored me. And so far, I was like, well, my friends and my family. But then the question was, and what do they look like? Because if they're an extension of yourself, i.e., they look like you, and maybe, in terms of neurodiversity or other sort of protected characteristics, they're different. How are you really expanding your lived experience? Because you meet with the same people, you talk about the same sorts of things, you share similar experiences. So if anyone wants to invite me for dinner, if you don't have such, then I'm available for bookings in that regard. So I thought I'd share that. 26th of December is an outing. So now moving on to keeping an eye on time. I've got about 5 more minutes. Okay.
Yep, you got 5 minutes
All
till
right.
question time, I should say. So everyone be thinking about your questions for Kofi and go ahead and get them in the chat.
Please do. Please do. So I missed a question, which was what you might want to see included in that list that we've just had. And I think we could ask it. So let me reverse the card one more time in terms of who we are and how do we appear. When we look at that list, does anyone have any thoughts of anything that I might have missed? I'm not claiming to be an expert, it's just food for thought.
I like the idea of putting a listening, something about listening on the how do you appear, especially in leadership, because it's one thing to be quiet. It's another thing to actually be consuming what other people are giving you. So some sort of active or reflective listening piece on there. Honesty is in there in the room. Oh, yeah. See, found my people. Honesty in the room, listening, focused, non-judgmental, appear supportive, approachable, credible. And also, I would add to that list vulnerable. I think it's important for
Mm,
people to be able to see that there are times that I get knocked down and I don't get back up again, for that
mm,
Chumbawamba song, and it takes me a minute. And that's okay, that I have weaknesses too. And that when I tear a relationship, as I will do from time to time, I can also put in the repair work.
yeah, no, it's beautiful. Humble. Thank you, Gwen, for ad-libbing like a legend. And there's been some great things in here from Carly and others as well. And on the subject of listening and really hearing, there's something powerful to be said about being present, as in here and now, and not allowing your mind to drift to the past and what may have gone wrong or what you didn't get right or who let you down, or going too far into the future where I've found out, test me on this, that 99% of the things that my super creative brain comes up with that will be worst case scenarios. You start a business, you're going to be destitute, you're going to be homeless, no one's going to buy your services. Who even likes you anyway? All of these things, 99% of them never actually come true. So actually staying present and really connecting with people in that moment as you meet them and trying to practice blocking out everything else is so powerful for connection because we all know it when someone's listening to us, but actually typing away on their phone or doing something on a virtual, you know it and you feel it. So that is one of my favorite ones that I'd love to share with you. So as an overview, as leaders, life can be lonely. So how can we create a platform to bring our best? And I had 3 steps, but cheated because there's sort of 5 things in each step. But starting with your joy being your GPS. And when I say that, it's really about the people, the places, and pursuits that lift you and make you feel good. Lord knows you may have to, unfortunately, spend time with those that don't. But if you focus the majority of your time on those, it should fill the cup that you have. And then building positive relationships, planning the general direction. What I've really come to realize now in my 40s is that I do not need to have it all figured out. In fact, I do not. And I admit that and I embrace that with full dancing in the moment uncertainty because it's an adventure, right? Um, yes, track progress and seek role models. So for us in coaching, it could be a supervisor, which I have, which is great. And then the second piece is taking steps, reviewing what you do, having some acceptance with what doesn't go well, maintaining balance, etc. And I won't read step 3, but I really hope that that sort of stays with you because I'm mindful that the clock is ticking and there's a little bit more that I want to share with you. This will be a short one, but really tying everything together into the intersectionality in leadership. When I looked at it, I thought of a machine and a cog with the gold bits helping it to move around. And it starts with bringing your best. And I say bringing your best because self-love is essential because I see it as impossible to bring your best without feeling your best. And it isn't to say perfection because I love what Gwen was saying earlier with her framing that she aims for 80% when dealing with her children and relationships, and being her best at 80% of the time, with 20% being, I think you said, opportunity to learn about repair, which I'm stealing. This is going to be my mantra, Gwen. Thank you. Next is considering creating the safe space to allow no, for all, sorry, through empathy and active listening. We talked about presence, that's key. And then it's about knowing your team, really. And I think by doing these things, you deepen your knowledge of the individuals in your team. But I'd love to stress remembering that seasons shift. And so as we evolve, um, the one and done idea of discovery won't serve us best. Influences will shift, intersectionality will evolve. And so let's see understanding as a dynamic principle. And let me quickly share some of the questions that you might utilize in your toolkit going forward. And I'll leave you with the last one that popped up, which is linked to curiosity, which is what am I missing? Because as I've said, you will have your unique 1 in 8 billion life experiences, influences that have shaped your journey. But often when there may be conflict or there's a difference, it's because we don't see eye to eye with the person that's across the room from us, be that a coachee or a colleague or a client. And when I ask myself that question, it always grounds me in humility because there's lots I'm missing. I don't know. I haven't lived their life. I haven't walked in their shoes, but leading with love, which is up at the top there, I think that we can move forward to hopefully a more harmonious place where that delightful energy can be centered in growing abundance and leading us to a place of greater diversity, equity, inclusion, and above all, belonging. So, yeah, thank you once again. I think I've just about done it. And here I am. If you'd like to carry on the conversation and share thoughts and insights and book recommendations, you name it, I'm here for it. So thank you.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Kofi. There was so much in that. So much that people are taking away from that. I hope you're able to see in the chat all the love that people have. So I am going to open it up to questions. So if you have questions, you can ask them now. You can ask them in the chat and I will ask them for you. One question I have for you, Kofi, is I love what you said around you don't have to have it all figured out right now. And I would love that everybody were able to believe that. But I know sometimes when working with leaders, they know they don't have it all figured out, but they have a belief that they should. So how do you work with that when somebody's stuck in that, but I should know kind of space?
Yeah, when they say that, it depends how cheeky I want to be, but usually I start with the have you been reincarnated into this
Mhm.
present form? And often they'll be like, weird question to ask me. And usually it'll be no. And then I'll say to them, well, in that case, how are you supposed to know what you should do? How about seeing life and the road less traveled as an adventure where you discover where you're supposed to go rather than pre-assigning the direction of travel when how much do we know ourselves? I felt at 15, I knew at 25, I knew myself definitely 35. Oh God, I've got this cracked. And here I am at 44, figuring I know less than I ever thought I did before. So that's probably how I'd address it.
Yeah, if I even knew half of what I thought I knew at 20, I'd be a genius, right? Um, Here's a real interesting one. So what's one piece of advice that you would give for taking that step to leave your job and go out on your own?
Wow. It would be start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And to talk in plain English, it is essentially around trusting the process because, again, what I've discovered in this journey to bring me to you right now, a year on into my journey, is when you're in alignment and you center yourself on joy and the things that uplift you, you will find people and connectors, destiny shapers and helpers that will make the way clearer for you. And we are beings that think, feel, see, touch, taste, whatever. And we trust in those things. We trust in those senses. But there is something to be said about the universe and things that we cannot see, touch, feel, hear that makes magic happen. So be brave and be different and be you and be consistent, as is at the bottom here, and go adventure and explore. And if you don't figure it out, staying present you can't go wrong because it's all part of the journey of learning, right?
Absolutely. I always say I want to go in my coffin learning one last thing. Like it's not done until it's done, man.
Mm.
So a question would be how to really support the quiet leaders, those who lead truly without the roles and formal position, but with the ability to be true leaders.
It was a question, let me understand how to do that. Like, how do we?
So how do you really support those quiet leaders?
Yeah, I think this is a balanced one, and with more time, I'd get into it. Sometimes, let me be super candid, the environment doesn't support the leadership approach, so you might have to move on. But where there is a willingness to support them, I think there's something to be said for reassuring people that you do not need to be a type. You do not need to be the jazz handing, bandstanding, loud and proud leader. Often it's the cultural carriers, the quiet leaders that have influence without a title that really make things happen in an organization. So I start with reassurance. And I'd also start with encouraging them or those that they interact with who are in positions of seniority or power in corporate structures to let that voice be heard more publicly, more frequently. Because as with anything, walking, riding a bike, whatever, we get good at the things that we practice. So practicing them using their voice not in a performative way, but to share the deep insights and valuable thoughts that they have, I think is a really powerful tool in terms of creating the conditions where the quieter leaders can really shine and add value to the cultures that they're in.
Brilliant. The next question is, how do you use or incorporate philosophy, wisdom, quotes in your practice?
Yeah, it comes up, and I would love to say that I have it scripted and written down, but it's just there's a difference between like thinking and just being. And I find that when I'm fully present and all the chat stops and I'm just there, the words kind of come to me from various things that I may have read. So my encouragement will be before I start any coaching session, I've got some incense that's floating around here right now. I play some Ludovico Einaudi or some 528 hertz music just to get me in the zone and do some deep breaths, just to really center myself in. I'm here, I'm now, and I'm ready to do the support and co-creation that this conversation requires and let it flow.
Hmm. Yeah, sometimes it's just that willingness to let the words come out. And then don't you love it when your client's like, "Oh, what was that you just said?" And you're like, "I don't know. What was it? Was it good? Should I write it down?" Yeah. Oh, well, lots of love for you here in the chat, Kofi. If you don't know how to save the chat, make sure you do save the chat, or I'll show you that in a minute. But thank you so much for being here. You've brought so much to this space. Everybody's just saying that they could listen to you talk all day. Basically, your tone is so soothing. I'll tell a little anecdote that when I was introducing Kofi to one of the other speakers, they're like, "Oh," I was like, "Oh, have you met before?" And he's like, "Not in this lifetime." And I was like, "That's so zen. I wish I were that zen all the time."
No,
So,
thank you. And I would actually, I forgot. There's if my voice hasn't been a switch off on YouTube, you can find Coffee with Kofi, which is me talking to leaders around the world who've heeded the call to pivot on something that's passionate for them. I forgot to sell it because I wasn't in selling mode. But if you'd like some bedtime snoozing listening, then you might find some insights in there.
I'll be cheeky enough too and let you know that Joe's on there. Joe Wheatley from In Good Company is on with Coffee with Kofi as
Yes,
well. So you can
yes.
listen to our two organizations come together, which would be
Yeah.
amazing. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending. We have one more to go, learning about neuroqueer coaching. But Kofi, thank you so much for sharing this space with us and allowing us to
Thank
benefit from
you.
wisdom.